There's a story that's told of a little drummer boy who was caught, who lost his footing and fell into a chasm while Napoleon was marching towards Russia in the War of 1812. The drummer himself was not severely injured, but he could not get out of the chasm by himself. So he did what any good drummer boy would do. He began to beat his drum to attract the attention of others. But the comrades of the drummer who heard that beat feared breaking ranks without orders from their commanding officer. So seeing that the drummer boy was getting nowhere, he began doing what he felt was best. He began to strike up his own death march. That's when the hardened soldiers began to weep as they marched past. But Napoleon, he was not moved. Napoleon was too busy thinking about conquering the world to remember a little insignificant boy who lost his footing accidentally. Thank God Jesus is not like Napoleon. Although at times when you look at our gospel lesson, it does seem like Jesus is acting exactly like Napoleon would, marching on and not even thinking about anything else. Because in our gospel lesson today, Jesus is beginning his march towards the cross. Because in the lesson immediately previous to this, what is at the beginning of Matthew chapter 15, Jesus had a major tiff and an argument with the Pharisees and the Sadducees about religious traditions. It was so bad of an argument that Jesus saw no way to get out of things other than just to walk away. And so that's what Jesus did. He left the area. He went across and he went to Tyre and Sidon. Now, I don't expect you to have the map of Israel etched in your mind as it is in mine, but Judah and Tyre and Sidon, they're right next to each other, as close as Michigan and Toronto are. And yet, they were vastly different. Tyre and Sidon was dominated by foreign people. Tyre and Sidon had a foreign language. Tyre and Sidon, they were full of idols. And Jesus goes to this area for that day, according to commentators, not so much to continue to do gospel ministry, but simply to get away from all of the conflict until the proper time. That is, when he would die on the cross. Now imagine Jesus' surprise when, while he's walking around Tyre and Sidon, and he's trying to keep a low profile the whole time, he hears a little drummer's march. Who's the little drummer in the story? It's the Canaanite woman, a spiritually unclean woman, an idolatrous woman, a person who has no reason at all to address the spiritual leader of Israel. And yet there she is. She's addressing him as if she believes in him as his Lord. The poor Canaanite woman is pleading, crying out, "Have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David. My daughter is severely oppressed by a demon." She's not just saying it once. She says it again and again and again and again and again. At regular intervals. She's like that drummer who's stuck in a chasm, and so is her daughter. And she wants to free both of them from their spiritual condition. And yet there is Jesus in that picture. And what is Jesus doing in that picture? Ignoring the woman. And that's when the disciples step in. Like the marching soldiers in the illustration, they hear the continuous pleas from the woman, but they don't have hearts that are moved by fear or by pity. Instead, they are indignant, and they think that this woman is a pest to them, so they command Jesus, send her away, because she is crying out after us. That's when Jesus answers finally to somebody. He explains to the disciples, and kind of haphazardly to the woman, not really explaining it to her, but just in ear's length so she can hear it. I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. With those words, Jesus is basically telling them, my job is not here. My job is not simply for me to do whatever you want me to do. My job is not to be a wandering miracle worker. And yet that poor woman continues to cry. She pleads with Jesus. And I love the picture here because it really illustrates it in such a beautiful way. She is so bold as to block Jesus at his feet, begging him, persistently pleading, Lord, help me, Lord, help me, Lord, help me. Yet Jesus continues to ignore her pleas, going so far as to say that his food, his forgiveness, his life, his salvation, his rescue from the death, his rescue from the devil, his rescue from demon possession itself is a food that is meant for God's people, those who deserve it, and not her. And he goes so far as to say it is not right to give the people's food and throw it to the dogs. Now, I'm sure, how many of you have dogs? I don't. I've got a cat. How many of you love your dogs? When Jesus says it's not right to give the people's food to the dogs, he's not saying it's like it's your best buddy here and, oh, I feel so guilty about giving this food to the dog. No, what Jesus is saying by calling her a dog is saying that she is a scraggly and gangly, that she is a pathetic and pitiful street dog. Ouch. And yet that doesn't stop the Canaanite woman. She continues to boldly implore Jesus, and she accepts Jesus' position by saying, in effect, it's true. I am a pathetic street dog. I don't deserve your food. But let me ask you this, Jesus. Don't dogs deserve something to eat? So don't I deserve not a full 5-course meal, but just a crumb of your mercy? So Jesus lays down his hand at the moment, hearing the poor, undeserving woman's cry and crying out that she has unexpected faith, that it is great faith, that it is magnanimous faith. She was bold enough to stop the commander of the armies of the Lord on his way to the cross and demand that she receive mercy while Jesus was walking to the cross. She stopped Jesus before he was about to enter into an epic battle. She stopped Jesus because she believed that she would receive a crumb of mercy. I know we didn't pray it in this service, but we prayed it in the traditional services, both last night and this morning. We have a prayer of the day. It comes right after we sing in the traditional service, "This is the feast," and right before we have the readings. It's called the prayer of the day, or it's the collect of the day. The word collect is literally to collect, and it's to collect the ideas of the whole meaning of all of the readings for the day. And I want to read to you a little portion of the collect of the day. Although we didn't pray it, it's something that is true for all of us today. In that collect, we prayed, "Almighty and everlasting Father, you give your children many blessings, although we are undeserving. We are undeserving of God's mercy. We are like that poor Canaanite woman. We are scraggly and gangly, pitiful and pathetic looking street dogs. We say it in one of our hymns. We deserve but grief and shame. We say it in our liturgy. We justly deserve God's temporal and eternal punishment. And yet, what does Jesus do? Jesus doesn't give us what we deserve. As we drive the nails into his hand, as we thrust the spear into his side, as we deride him for everything that he has done and spit upon his face and mock him through our thoughts, words, and deeds, Jesus idly and quietly sits there and then says, Father, forgive them. That's what I want you to hear today. God doesn't give you what you deserve. He gives you blessings instead of curses when you ask for them. Now, it's true, I'll admit it, the blessings of God don't look like they're much. It's just a little pastor's word saying, I forgive you. It's just a little word from a brother or sister in Christ who asks for forgiveness, who says, you are forgiven. It's just a little bit of a sprinkling of water. It's just a little tiny piece of bread. It's just a little bit of wine. But in that water, in that bread, in that wine, in those words is something that has eternal value and provides you a spiritual reprieve. It's not a 5-course meal. It's a crumb of God's mercy. So take God's mercy for what it is. And this is where I finally get a chance. I've had this in my sermon for the past 2 times I've preached it, and I've been waiting to put this in. I'm now going to preach to you, all you teachers here. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Remember this. God is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. And he has entrusted you teachers here at St. John the ministry that connected to him, by the way, connected is our theme for this year, connected to him, you share the mercy of God with your students. At times, you're going to feel like your students don't deserve anything good. But even an undeserving brat deserves to know of God's mercy, even if all you can do is just give them a little bit of it. Because even the little things can have an eternal benefit. I'm going to conclude my sermon with a story for you. I will admit, when I was writing this sermon, I scoured years of emails to find this. 12 years ago, yes, I searched 12 years of emails to find this. 12 years ago, I was going through a little bit of a rough patch in my life while I was at seminary. So as was my custom, I went to my pastor's wife, who was a good friend of mine, and told her how I was doing. Now, mind you, this pastor's wife, her husband, the pastor of my congregation, had been serving at that congregation faithfully for 15 plus years and was now diagnosed with stage 4 brain cancer. And yet every day, even though everybody told him to stop preaching the word, he got up in the pulpit every week to do that. And his wife, the organist of the congregation, and my dear friend supported him throughout that. And in the midst of those struggles, she wrote to me these words: "The important things in life are never easy, but the eternal rewards are so worth it." The important things in life are never easy, but the eternal rewards are so worth it. That's what the Canaanite woman realized. She realized that the important things in life are easy and that she didn't deserve what she was getting. And yet she continued to plead on, even though it was not easy. And what did she get at the end of the day? An eternal reward. And that is my prayer to you this day. Plead for Jesus' mercy regularly until the day that you die. And have faith and trust that he will give you that mercy, because the mercy he gives you will have an eternal benefit. And keep coming to God, no matter what happens and no matter what stands in your way, that he would bless you, though you deserve none of it. May God keep you in this faith until the end. Amen. And now may the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, guard and protect your hearts and minds through faith unto life everlasting. Amen.